Hi, I'm Chris Cooper. Welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Thanks for joining us. For over 150 years, cooperative extension services across the nation have been helping people improve their lives in many ways. And it still plays an important role in American life, rural, urban, and suburban. Extension agents help farmers grow crops, homeowners plan and maintain their homes, and children learn skills to become tomorrow's leaders. And it's time to think about planting some of our fall vegetables. So today, we'll be talking about what and when to plant. All that and more is just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, so stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Dr. Lynn Brookins. Dr. Brookins is a UT Extension Program Leader. And Dr. Leah Kelly is here. Dr. Kelly is a horticulture specialist with Mississippi State University Extension. Thanks for joining me, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
All right. Hi, Dr. Brookins. Brief history about the beginnings of Extension.
The beginnings of Extension. The beginnings of Extension is Congress created the Extension system as a means to addressing rural agriculture issues.
Okay.
In 1862, Congress established what is known as the Morrill Act, which gave every state land to build a land-grant university. And the land-grant university are campuses that house agriculture programs, home economics, as you know, our family consumer science programs, mechanical arts, our industrial technology type programs. And these programs were to teach the common people, or the average citizen, practical education in which they can apply to their everyday living. In the early years, education was for people who had money, of influence, and most of that education went to law, religion, or medicine. So this afforded the average citizen the opportunity to get an education in which they can apply it to their everyday living. And as a result of the land-grant universities, a partnership was established between USDA and the land-grant universities, which makes us, the university's extension programs, a part of the federal government, state government, and county government.
Okay. Now, these programs that you were talking about, were they targeted just for men or farmers?
Initially, they were targeted to men because men were farmers.
Right.
In the early years, women stayed home. They were homemakers. They kept the kids, kept the house. So the programs were targeted to men. Seaman Knapp was the first county extension agent, and he established plots trying to get farmers to come to his programs. Well, he had these plots established, and he could never get the farmers to come to see the work that he was doing with the crops and things.
Okay.
So he had to find another approach to get people there. And obviously these people were not coming to his programs because they were farmers, so they were out working.
Right.
So he thought, well, I can try to go through the kids, and which is what he did. He created what's known as the corn cribs. And he did things with children,
Right.
the farmers'
Really neat.
sons particularly, and brought them on board and taught them different things and showed them different things that related to corn, growing corn, I guess the disease of corn, and fertilizing the corns and those kinds of things. So at the end of the day, the kids would go home and they would share those things that they've learned with their fathers. So the fathers were thinking, well, let me go and find out what this man, Seaman Knapp, is doing. You know, it may be something I can use. And that's how his programs became about, and farmers taking advantage of what the extension agent had to offer.
Okay.
And as a result of that, then this Seaman Knapp started using some of their crops and commodities to do demonstration trials and those kinds of things.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So is the mission still the same today as it was back then?
The mission is still the same.
Good.
Our mission then and our mission now was to provide research education to citizens through educational programs, and we're still doing that.
Okay.
Some of our focus has changed, I would say, thinking back with family and consumer science and home economics, as some people may know. We used to teach how to make mattresses.
Oh, wow.
We used to teach how to build a lamp and make a lamp.
Wow.
We taught canning because, as you know, they grew everything,
Right.
so they had to put things up. So we taught those kinds of skills, and we're not teaching how to make mattresses and lamps and those kinds of things, but we are still teaching people how to cook healthy and eat healthy, manage their money and manage their resources. So a lot of the things we're still doing, and we're still teaching life skills to young people, things that they can use in today's life and use when they are adults as well.
And those things are important because canning
very-
has come back.
Oh,
Canning
yeah.
has come
You know,
back.
big
yes.
time.
Very definitely.
Yeah, and with the economy, of
Yeah.
course, a lot of people want to know about finances.
Right,
I need
right.
financial help, so yes, come back. Now, how many staff persons work in the West Tennessee region?
In the West Tennessee area, we have probably about 250 staff persons, and that would encompass over half of that is 4-H agents and family and consumer science agents.
Okay.
We have IT that's included in that, regional specialists, and also administrators that are included in that number.
Okay, definitely want to get to this question. And Dr. Kelly, you chime in on this as well. Do you feel the programs make a difference in the lives of Tennesseans and then Mississippians for you? But we'll start with you, Dr. Brookins.
I surely do
Yes.
believe that the programs we do make a difference, and we have a database system in which we put our impacts and programs in, and we are able to report to our federal funders the impacts that we're making in Tennessee. And some of our impactful impacts are behavioral, and some of them are knowledge gain. Some of our behavioral is we get information back from people who have attended our Dining with Diabetes programs that say that they no longer have to take their diabetes medication,
cool.
that they can
Okay.
control it through nutrition and exercise. We have programs like chronic disease where we've had individuals to say that they've not been able to walk without a walker in years, and as a result of attending the programs and learning the education, that they're now able to do things without their walker and things. So yes, we do have impactful data that we can share with our stakeholders.
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, we have to, of course, as you know, we have to justify what we do and show our impacts and behavior changes, just like y'all with being in Extension Service. And since I'm in agriculture, I can talk to how that we impact our agricultural producers. And since I'm a consumer horticulture specialist, I work with consumers, with the home gardening and with their landscapes. So we take data on, yields, how we increase yields for our agricultural producers. We take the economic, impact, which is a big thing, to show that you're teaching them things that make them more profitable, and things like that. So, for a homeowner, some of the work that I do, of course, Chris, that I'm the Master Gardener Coordinator.
that.
So we have a lot of people who work with the homeowners, the Master Gardeners, to teach them, how to increase their landscape home value,
Right.
If they want to resell. So yeah, we have a lot of data as well that we have to report to our legislators so we can get more funding, right?
Keep the funding coming in, yeah.
Yeah, keep that support coming in so we can
Yeah.
keep doing what we do,
Yeah.
All right, so we're definitely making an impact.
Right.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Brookins. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Dr. Kelly, believe it or not, it is time to start thinking about fall vegetable gardening.
That's exactly right.
Wow, so
Yeah.
what do we need to know?
Well, I want to say this. When you
Okay.
asked me to come back and be on the show.
Yeah,
and
we like you on the
said-
show.
And you
Of
said, all right, now come out with some topics. And I said, well, this will be a good time to be thinking about, the fall vegetable garden. And then when I started, thinking about it to get prepared for this show, I got so excited that I went out and started buying seed
So you
and
started,
planted my,
okay.
getting ready to do my fall garden. But yeah, it's not too early. It is not
Okay.
too early to be thinking about, the things that you can plant for the fall garden. And some vegetables even do better, in the fall. You think about your cool season crops,
Yes.
like your mustard, your collards, your turnips, your rutabagas, your lettuces,
Wow.
Chinese
So your leafy
cabbage.
vegetables.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, those ones that are really good for you,
Yeah.
But Chinese cabbage really does better in the fall than it does in the spring. So if you like the Chinese cabbage, if you like those kind of vegetables, and it's absolutely not too late to actually plant bush beans, bush green beans.
Really?
If you plant them before, say, mid-August, you should have a yield of some green beans in this part of the state
Right.
now. If
Right.
you way up in the mountains of Knoxville, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But for North Mississippi and West Tennessee, the southern part of West Tennessee, I'm thinking you could get, if you planted your green bush beans, you could get some green beans before frost,
That would be good.
So yeah. So there's a lot of things. You can grow radishes and onions, and you can even grow fall Irish potatoes. And some of these crops you got all the way into October to get them in the ground, before, because they like the cool weather.
Right. Let's
so-
just hope we have some cool weather around that
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I'm ready
That's the
for it.
point.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of wonderful vegetables that we can grow,
Okay.
for the fall garden.
Now let me ask you this: seeds or transplants? Which one do you prefer?
Well, I do a little bit of both.
Okay, a little bit of both.
Of
Okay.
course, if you like the greens, like the mustard greens and the kale and the turnips and things, usually, as my grandmother did, we would sow what we call a salad patch. She'd just get out and we'd just plow up a little bit of ground and just broadcast the seed out and then rake it in. And of course, for the greens, that's the easy, good way to do it. But now, transplants could be used for, I don't know, maybe your broccoli and your cauliflower and the Chinese cabbage. I'd probably want to find some transplants of those. Lettuce you can seed.
Yeah, easily
So
seed.
I would think probably for the fall garden you'd do more seeding than actually using transplants.
Okay. So it just kind of depends on which ones you would.
Yeah, radishes, you seed, onions, you would have the sets,
Sets.
and of course the Irish potatoes, you'd have the little seed potatoes you'd cut up. So it depends on the crop, but I'd say mostly seeding for the things that I would grow in my fall garden, because I like the salad patch.
Okay.
I like the mustard greens and the turnip greens and, those things for the, boil them up with some fat back.
All right, stop. That sounded too good right now. Yeah, that sounds really good.
I might try that.
Yeah.
That sounds good. All right. Now, this is the crux, of vegetable gardening to me, in my opinion. Soil prep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what do we need to know about preparing that soil for these fall vegetables?
Yeah, my dad was a civil engineer, and he
Wow,
always talked about the foundation. You have to have a good foundation, for a bridge or a big building or whatever, because if you don't get that foundation right, you're not going to have the success of that building or that bridge, staying there for the length of time and doing what it needs to do.
Right.
So it's kind of that way with the soil. You've
Agreed.
got to get it right on the front end. It's a lot easier to do the soil test and figure out if the pH is right, what nutrients for the crop, that you're wanting to grow. And everybody knows, probably in Extension how to do and take a soil test and get it submitted. So it's not very much money in Mississippi. I don't know what UT charges.
It's $7.
7? Oh, we charge 6.
Oh, look at that. We went up to you on that one.
Yeah, well, we may be going up too. But you just need to, you need to have a handle on what's going on in the soil, and adding organic matter is a good thing,
Yeah.
especially in the deep south where we are, because, that organic matter degrades and is broken down real quickly in our high temperatures.
Yes.
So organic matter is a good thing. So yeah, and get rid of all that old warm season vegetable debris, your squash and your cucumbers and other things that have already done their thing. You rip all that stuff out and get them out of there, because there may be some insect eggs and disease organisms that could come into your fall garden. So,
Okay.
but soil prep is definitely important.
Most important.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
for our viewers in Mississippi, hello, they can go by the extension office and get soil kits. Do they have soil
Yeah,
kits
oh
down
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
We got the little boxes and the little forms,
Okay.
and you fill that out and bring it back to the extension office, and then they'll take it or ship it to campus, and you'll get the analysis. And couple of weeks, depending on the time of year, you know,
right.
how busy
Same
they
here.
are in the lab. So, yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel about compost?
I like compost.
To incorporate into that soil?
Yeah, yeah.
That's on the organic material
Oh
you're
yeah,
talking about?
it is.
Okay.
Compost is basically sort of looked at as a really great source of organic matter, but it also has some nutritive value, kind of a slow release. Very minor nutrient value, but it's a good thing because it's sort of a slow release thing. As
Okay.
that compost continues to biodegrade,
good.
you know, things are released into the soil that are good for plants.
Okay.
So yeah, and having your own compost pile is a great way to recycle food waste and things like that, you know, the
Sure it is.
vegetable waste.
Okay. And for most of our vegetables, they need a well-drained soil, I would guess. right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, most plants that we grow in our gardens have to have that well drained. We don't have very many swampy vegetables. you know.
No, we sure don't. And thank goodness. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
want
that would be good.
I wouldn't want that at all.
Yeah, so you know, raised beds. If you got a real
Yeah.
heavy soil, you know, real heavy clay soil or something, you know, you can always remedy that by, you know, building up a raised
good.
bed or a berm so that the drainage is good. So,
Yeah, and raised beds are popular these days.
Oh yeah.
I
The
understand
higher
why.
up, the better for
Yeah.
us older people. So you don't have to bend over
over.
as far. Yeah.
Now, quick-
Easy to bend over, not so much to get back up.
That's
yeah.
what my mom says all the time. Okay, let's quickly get to disease and insect management. You mentioned a little bit about that.
Yeah,
so let's
yeah.
Make sure we get that out there.
The fall garden typically can have a little bit more insect problems because by that time of the year, the insects have had time to have several generations, so their populations may be a little high, especially things like squash bugs and things like that kind of tend to flare up in the fall garden. So you just need to be mindful and watch and be ready, you know, to see if you've got something present, you know, to go ahead and get out the insecticide. And there's a lot of good, safe, you know, insecticides used, especially the cabbage loopers, you know, the little caterpillars
Right.
that get on your leafy greens and things. Those are easily controlled by the bacterium, you know,
Yeah,
the
the
BT.
BT.
Yeah, which is
Very
perfectly
easy.
safe. You know, there's no days to harvest on us going out and eating that stuff. So
Right.
it kills those worms, but it doesn't hurt us. So
We're
that's a good thing.
And
Yeah.
That's what we want at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And let me mention too, always practice good sanitation too. Like you
Sure.
mentioned before, you know, get those disease leaves
Right.
up and things like that. You don't want to leave that residue out there that's disease.
No,
'cause
yeah,
it
you wanna-
contains spores.
Yeah, want
Yes.
to clean up,
You want to clean it up.
Yeah.
Okay, you want a good site.
You wouldn't leave that old stuff laying around your house, you know,
No.
dirty clothes, things like that.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Dr. Kelly. Now, here's our Q&A session.
Oh boy.
Dr. Brookins, you jump in there with us, all right?
Okay, I will.
You jump right in there with us.
I will.
All right, here's the first question.
Oh man.
I have orange-looking spots on my apple tree leaves. What is it? And actually,
You got some, huh?
yes, the apple tree. I came across one just driving the other day and decided to clip it off. And I don't know if you can get a good picture of that, but there is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that will be cedar
Apple rust. Yeah, exactly.
Cedar apple rust.
Yeah.
You see it a lot this time of the year. Here's the interesting thing about cedar apple rust. It spends half of its life cycle
On
as a
another tree.
parasite
Yeah.
on junipers.
That's right.
Okay.
The reason it's called cedar apple rust.
Rust.
This has two hosts.
How about that?
Yeah,
half of its
interesting.
life cycle on the
Yeah.
juniper. And here's the deal. There are resistant varieties out there. So you just have to make sure that you choose a resistant variety for your apples and your crab apples.
Right.
Okay, for your
Yeah.
apples, you know, your Red Delicious, your Liberty, your Arkansas Black would be resistant to cedar apple rust. Okay, so resistant varieties, number one. Number two, and this is going to be quite difficult, you have to get rid of all of the red cedars and junipers
Yeah.
in a 5-mile radius.
I knew that your neighbors might not
Yeah.
like that if they're having, you know, having Christmas trees out.
No,
there.
they got the
But-
screens out there,
Yeah.
Christmas trees and things like that. No, they're not gonna like that. So yeah, get your chainsaw out if you want to do that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a 5-mile radius or longer.
Oh, man,
You know, it just
yeah.
depends
Yeah.
because those spores are out there and they're flying all over the place in wind and when it rains. Okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing is, and for me this is always a last resort. I mean, you can use
Sprays.
fungicides.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
be early on it though.
But you got to be early. You pretty
Yeah.
much have to be at butt break.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
for these for your
'Cause
apples and your crab apples.
Our fungicides are not curatives, they're preventatives.
Preventatives in
You
nature,
know, so
right.
that means it's got to be present on the leaf as a film of
Mm-hmm.
that fungicide to keep those spores from landing there and being able to germinate.
Right.
So, You know, it's a preventive type thing. So you can't wait till you see it and then
but
say,
you see
oh,
that.
I've got to do something. It's kind of late at that point.
And it's not going to correct this leaf.
No,
Right.
And it can cause, severe case can cause a lot of defoliation and some other problems. So if you know now on that variety, for example, that you've got the potential for that to happen, next spring, like you said, Chris, get out get out your UT publication that tells you what you need to be spraying on the apple trees and the pear trees.
And the pear trees.
You know,
and
to
get out there and spray 'em.
prevent, a broad spectrum of different types of pathogens. So
Yeah. And what we recommend at UT Extension for the homeowner is Immunox.
yeah, okay.
It's Immunox. The active ingredient is myclobutanil. Okay,
Yep.
if I pronounced that right. But that's what we, advise our homeowners to use.
Right.
All right, here's the next question. My Photinia shrub is covered in dark purple spots on the leaves. Is that some kind of disease? Of course it is.
Yeah. It's that horrible leaf spot that attacks photinias, and it also actually is the same organism that gets after Indian hawthorns and some pears and some other things. So, but photinia seems to get the brunt of it because it'll flat out just defoliate the plant.
Yeah, the leaves will drop. I had
Yeah.
one of those Photinia shrubs back in the day, not anymore.
Yeah.
But it has the little purple spots
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
upper and lower side of
Right.
the leaves. It
there's-
looks bad.
It does.
The leaves drop.
Yeah. There's some cultural things that I think you could do to kind of minimize that is, have them spaced out so that you get good
Yeah.
air circulation.
Get those
Don't
leaves
prune.
dried off.
Yeah, don't prune late to cause a big flush of new growth in the summer.
Yeah.
Do your pruning in the spring, before they start growing, which will minimize the spread of the
Yeah.
disease. So,
And again, pick up those diseased
yeah,
leaves.
yeah, rake all that old debris up
Pick it
and do away with it, and cut down all your Indian hawthorns and pears. No, because they're spreading to the
Yeah, 'cause
disease
they're
too.
spreading it.
Anyway, there's some other plants you can substitute. A lot of people are saying, well, I'm just getting so tired of having to spray my petunias, and so there's some pretty nice big broadleaf evergreens that we can substitute. For photinias. And actually, we just had a call come in to our pathology lab about a gentleman who had a huge hedge of the photinias, and for some reason he didn't have a lot of leaf spot, but this year, I guess because of our, a little bit more rainy
we had a
times
lot
we've
of rain early.
Oh, it's just horrible. And so what I eventually just told him that he just needs to start substituting. If he had room, come either in front or behind that hedge and just start planting some of this, not a monoculture. Because if
Right.
you have one species of something, it's a lot more prone. If some insect or disease comes in, it's going to go through that whole species hedgerow. So what I like to recommend is, having different species.
Right.
Maybe some
Agreed.
hollies, maybe some, I don't know, some of the other ligustrums that are not so invasive, and
Okay.
things like that, so that you're having not just the one plant that can get attacked.
And if you want to, again, last resort, you can use fungicides. There's
Sure.
some out there, copper-based fungicides
Right.
or chlorothianil, which is daconil that you can
Right.
use. But last resort for me. Here's our next question. This is a good one.
Yeah, it is. This is a
I
good
hear
one.
people say that you can use dishwashing detergent to spray on bugs. Can you use any kind of detergent, and how much is needed for a spray bottle? So pay attention, Dr. Brookins. So you have those bugs on your trees and on your shrubs, you can use dishwashing liquid to do that. Can't you, Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, well, when I have always heard that. I've always
I have
read
too.
that,
I
and
have.
it's usually sort of a home remedy kind of thing. It's like pouring beer out
Yeah,
to get
for
your
the
slugs
slugs.
drunk and drown. So, but if you look at trying to find a university that actually recommends that, it's kind of hard to find that, Chris. And I did find from Colorado State, believe
Okay,
it or not.
all right.
I got to look. Mississippi State doesn't have anything saying that. It just says
We don't
that
either,
it's okay to use insecticidal
Soap,
soaps,
right.
which is a product that
Same
is
here.
formulated and sold just specifically for insects, and it is a detergent.
Right.
It is a detergent in there. But to say that you can take some dishwashing detergent, put it in water, and spray it on your plants, I would hesitate to recommend that because of the possibility of phytotoxicity.
Right.
Some plants it might be just perfectly fine on, others you might get some damage.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of research just on a homeowner coming up with their own formulation and doing that. So I would be a little hesitant.
Okay, but insecticide or are out there that you
Sure,
can use.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, phototoxicity and no residual. Because once it dries, it's not effective
That's
anymore.
right. That's right.
You know, because it affects, soft body.
Yeah, they got it. Thing is though, with insecticidal soaps, you got to get it on the insect.
Yeah, you got to get it on there.
Yeah, it's not like you spray it on the plant and they eat it and it kills them. You've got to get it on the body of the insect, which is, you got to get down and under and up and around. And
Got to get good coverage. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. We're out of time. Be sure to connect with us. We'll send you weekly email updates about Family Plot. Just go online to WKNO.org and sign up under Get Local Show Updates. The email address is familyplot@WKNO.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.